The morning sun was just cresting the ridge, painting the tall Douglas firs in gold, when I drove the first post hole into the soft Washington soil. The air carried that sharp, clean smell of fresh cedar and damp pine needles, my favorite combination. I'd been looking forward to this project for weeks. A solid 6-foot privacy fence along the back line of my 45 acres, just enough to muffle the weekend noise drifting over from the cookie-cutter subdivision next door. Hammer in hand, I was already picturing quiet evenings on the porch with nothing but birds and the occasional deer. Then I heard the sharp click-click-click of heels on gravel. You cannot build that fence without HOA approval. The voice sliced through the quiet like a siren on full blast. Victoria Hargrove marched straight toward me, arms folded tight across her pastel yoga top, oversized sunglasses reflecting the sun like mirrors. This is a clear violation of Evergreen Meadows community standards. Stop immediately, or I will be forced to involve the authorities. I leaned on the post-hole digger, wiped my forehead with the back of my glove, and met her gaze. "Ma'am, this parcel isn't part of your HOA." She let out that short, incredulous laugh, the one people reserve for someone they think is slow. "Everything within a half-mile radius falls under our governing documents. You need a formal application, architectural review, fees, board approval, the entire process. Surely you understand how property values work." I straightened up slowly. "Lady, this land has been in my family since Eisenhower was in office. Your subdivision wasn't even a gleam in a developer's eye back then." For just a heartbeat, her polished smile cracked. Then she recovered, chin lifting. "We'll see about that." She pulled her phone from the pocket of her expensive leggings and dialed 911 with theatrical speed. Red and blue lights appeared down the long gravel drive within 10 minutes. Deputy Ramirez stepped out of his cruiser, notepad already in hand. Victoria stood on the perfectly edged lawn of the model home she'd bought as her command center, arms still crossed, looking like she'd already won the case. "Officer, this individual is trespassing and constructing an unpermitted structure on community property. I demand immediate action." I walked to my old Ford, reached behind the seat, and pulled out the original 1962 deed, yellowed parchment, still crisp at the edges after 64 years. I handed it over without a word. Ramirez scanned the legal description, then glanced at the survey pins my grandfather had driven into the ground when the county still used horses for some of the field work. His eyebrows climbed. "Mr. Whitaker, these meets and bounds match the county GIS exactly. This parcel predates Evergreen Meadows by more than 5 decades. No overlap." Victoria's smirk evaporated. Color drained from her face so fast her foundation looked suddenly 2 shades too dark. The sunglasses slipped halfway down her nose. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. That was the moment she knew she'd picked the wrong fight. "My name is Harlan Whitaker. I'm 62 years old, born and raised right here in the foothills outside Tacoma. 3rd generation on this land. My grandfather, Elias Whitaker, bought these 45 acres in 1962 for $920 in back taxes at a county auction. He was a land surveyor by trade, methodical, quiet, and obsessive about documentation. Every plat map, every tax receipt, every correspondence with the county, he filed it away in a steel cabinet that still smells faintly of mothballs and pipe tobacco when I open it. I live in the cabin he built with his own hands. Hand-hewn cedar logs, stone fireplace, tin roof that sings when it rains. I heat with what I split myself, grow tomatoes and green beans out back, keep the old Ford running with parts one order online or scavenge from the junkyard. I hunt deer in season, fish the Puyallup when the salmon run, and generally try to live the way Elias taught me. Mind your own business, pay your taxes, keep good records. Then Evergreen Meadows happened. In 2018, a developer called Pacific Ridge Homes bought up adjacent parcels and threw up 25 identical 4- and 5-bedroom houses, starting at $525,000. They slapped luxury estates on the marketing brochures and created an HOA with $375 monthly dues for community enhancement and maintenance. Buyers signed thick stacks of covenants without reading past page 3. Victoria Hargrove moved in early, bought the corner lot with the biggest view, and within 6 months had maneuvered herself into the president's chair. 51 years old, former top-producing real estate agent, now full-time neighborhood enforcer. White SUV, always spotless, weekly manicures, the kind of woman who measures blade height with a ruler and issues fines for holiday lights left up past January 15th. The first summer after the houses filled, the noise started. Barbecues every weekend, kids screaming in inflatable pools, classic rock, cranked to compete with lawnmowers. Nothing criminal, just ordinary suburban life. But when you're 62, used to silence broken only by owls and wind in the firs, it wears on you. I decided on the fence. After Deputy Ramirez drove away without issuing so much as a warning, Victoria didn't retreat. She doubled down. The next morning, I found a bright orange violation notice stapled to my first fence post. $500 fine for unauthorized construction. Additional $100 per day until removal. I held the paper up to the sunlight slanting through grandfather's old-growth firs, trees that had been saplings when Lewis and Clark passed through, and laughed out loud. Then I filed it in the interesting documents folder. She called an emergency board meeting that same week. My neighbor Raj Singh, a software engineer who grows heirloom tomatoes that win ribbons at the county fair, knocked on my door after dark. Harlan, she's circulating photos of your cabin. Calling it a ramshackle eyesore, that's depressing comps. They're talking about enhanced enforcement. Raj and his wife Priya had already been fined twice, once for unapproved agricultural activity, tomatoes, once for parking their daughter's Honda Civic in the driveway overnight. The board meeting lasted 12 minutes. Victoria presented her case like a prosecutor. 5 nodding heads. Boom, official authorization to pursue legal remedies. Next came the county building inspector. Victoria hovered 15 feet away, phone in hand, recording. The inspector measured, checked setbacks, examined my one post. I walked him to the original iron pins grandfather had set in 1963. He pulled out his county tablet, overlaid the old plat. Mr. Whitaker, he said quietly, these boundaries are ironclad. Your parcel is completely outside Evergreen Meadows recorded plat. No jurisdiction. Victoria's voice climbed an octave. But community standards. Property values. Everyone has to follow the rules. The inspector closed his case file. Ma'am, rules only apply where the documents say they apply. And here, they don't. That should have been the end. But Victoria had tasted blood. Within 48 hours a cease and desist letter arrived certified mail, her cousin's small firm in Puyallup. It demanded immediate removal of all unauthorized improvements, threatened suit for nuisance and diminution of value, and included enough Latin to choke a judge. She mailed copies to every mailbox in the subdivision. 25 families got front-row seats to her version of events. Then came the concerned neighbors gathering at her house. Wine, charcuterie, soft lighting, and a PowerPoint titled, Protecting Our Investment. I watched from my kitchen window as cars lined her driveway. Heard anxious laughter drifting across the field. Smelled barbecue smoke mixed with fear. While she rallied her troops, I finally dragged grandfather's steel cabinet out of the back bedroom. Took a pair of bolt cutters to the rusted padlock I'd lost the key to years ago. The smell hit me first. Old paper, pipe tobacco time. Folders labeled in Elias's careful draftsman's hand. Surveys 1958 to 1975, tax correspondence, water rights, mineral reservations. Then I found the folder that changed everything. Subsurface and easement retention 1962. Grandfather hadn't just purchased surface rights. He'd negotiated to retain mineral rights, water rights, and a perpetual access easement across what later became the subdivision footprint. Standard language for large rural parcels back then, designed to prevent developers from locking owners out of subsurface value. Pacific Ridge, Evergreen's parent company, had acquired only surface rights when they bought from the state land bank. They'd never bothered to extinguish the easement or purchase the mineral layer. Every poured foundation, every septic field, every utility trench, the community pool, the playground with its bright plastic slides, the decorative entrance gate with stone lions, all technically sat on top of rights that belonged to me. Deputy Ramirez returned 3 days later, this time with a supervisor. Victoria insisted on a show of force, 2 cruisers. She stood on her lawn in workout gear that cost more than my monthly grocery bill, arms crossed, phone recording. I invited the deputies onto the porch, Offered coffee from the pot I'd started when I saw them coming. Spread the original patents across the table, wax seals, faded ink, signatures from county commissioners dead since the Vietnam War. Ramirez studied them for a long time. Mr. Whitaker, this is complicated. We'll need to verify with records, but on first look these documents appear valid and properly chained. No arrests. No citations. As the cruisers pulled away, neighbors began drifting toward my fence line, asking quiet questions Victoria had spent months discouraging. She pivoted to media. Channel 5 news van rolled in on a Friday afternoon. Victoria gave the full performance. Trembling voice, crocodile tears. I'm just trying to protect our families from this dangerous outsider. Reporter Mia Torres knocked on my door next. I carried out the box of documents and laid the survey maps across the porch rail. Showed how the HOA common areas overlaid my easement. Explained Pacific Ridge's bankruptcy 6 months after completion. Debts unpaid. Lawyers scattering. Grandfather's polite letters offering easement. Terms ignored. Mia started digging. Public records showed rushed title work, missed filings, corner cutting to hit completion deadlines. 25 title policies suddenly looked very thin. The neighborhood split into camps. Victoria loyalists, curious researchers, and those pretending nothing was happening. Tuesday morning, I opened the folder labeled County Planning Correspondence 1962. Found the perpetual access easement, negotiated by grandfather to allow future mineral extraction if needed. It ran with the land forever, overriding later subdivisions, HOA covenants, even building permits. Legally, I could drive a backhoe through the middle of their cul-de-sac if I wanted to reach a survey point. Consolidated title arrived the following Monday. 3 suits with briefcases and grim faces. Forensic review underway. Potential exposure in the millions. Victoria's board members started resigning. The WhatsApp group went silent. The community center sat empty. I drafted a proposal. Conservation easement on 32 acres of second-growth forest, grandfathering all existing homes, reducing dues to $180 monthly paid into a democratically managed trust. No more fines for vegetable gardens, backyard hens, or work trucks. Permanent protection against future overdevelopment. Raj and Priya signed on first, after Victoria had threatened liens over their tomato beds. The Millers next. Their 2 girls cried at the thought of losing their 6 hens. The Garcias, harassed about 3 pickups needed for construction jobs, joined quietly. I installed game cameras. Caught Victoria's enforcement committee trespassing repeatedly, pulling my stakes, posting fake boundary signs. Every clip time-stamped, GPS tagged, uploaded to the cloud. Then she went personal. Anonymous online posts. I was unstable, potentially violent, running a criminal operation behind the trees. Doctored photos suggested grow lights in my barn. She hired a private investigator, ex-cop specializing in dirt, who followed Raj to work, photographed Priya at the grocery store. The worst came when she found my daughter, Claire, in Olympia. Claire works for a small environmental nonprofit. She's 34, still paying off student loans. Victoria called Claire's executive director, implying my instability and legal troubles could reflect poorly on the organization. Claire called me that night crying. "Dad, what is going on? They asked if I was safe around you. Family is the line you don't cross." I phoned Tom Riley, my attorney since grandfather's estate. At 6:15 a.m., file it all. Quiet title, harassment, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, attempted bribery if she tries anything else. No more playing nice. Victoria's last move came Wednesday evening. She knocked on my door with a canvas bag containing $45,000 in hundreds. The bills smelled of her perfume and panic. "Let's be reasonable, Harlan," she said, voice tight. "The neighborhood pulled this together. Compensation for your inconvenience." My phone was already recording, one-party consent state. "Ma'am, are you offering me cash to abandon my legal property rights?" She hesitated. "I'm offering a fair resolution." I left the bag on the porch. Called Tom. Add attempted bribery to the list. Thursday's emergency HOA meeting was scheduled for the community center, built squarely on my easement. She hired 2 private security guards, big guys with military haircuts, to keep me out. I arrived at 6:15 p.m., parked beside Mia's news van, and walked in carrying grandfather's deed box. The room smelled of coffee, anxiety, and carpet cleaner. 25 families turned to stare. Victoria stood at the podium like a general before a rout. "We are here to address the ongoing threat from outside elements." Tom Riley entered with a process server. Ellen Hayes, environmental attorney, followed with impact studies. Deputy Ramirez brought backup. The process server approached the podium. "Victoria Hargrove, you're being served with a temporary restraining order, defamation complaint, civil harassment suit, and notice of criminal referral for attempted bribery and assault." Victoria's face cycled through every shade of red and white. "This is outrageous. Security, remove this man." The guards exchanged glances. One muttered into his radio, "We're not getting paid enough for this." I walked to the front, set the box down, pulled out the 1962 deed, held it high. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's clear up who owns what." Silence except for phone cameras clicking. I explained the easement, the retained rights, the bankruptcy that left Pacific Ridge's sloppy paperwork exposed. Showed maps overlaying their pool, playground, streets. Deputy Ramirez confirmed. County records matched. Victoria screamed, "This is fraud. Those papers are fake." Ramirez stepped forward. "Ma'am, we've verified them. Chain of title is unbroken." She lunged toward me, nails out. "You're stealing our homes." Security blocked her. She swung wildly, caught Ramirez's shoulder. The metallic snap of handcuffs echoed through the room. "You can't do this," she shrieked as they let her out. "I built this community." She was arrested on land she claimed to control, but never legally owned. The room stayed quiet for a long beat. I spoke softly. "I'm not here to evict anyone. The conservation easement protects your houses, lowers your dues, and saves what's left of the forest my grandfather loved. Meetings start next week if you're interested." 19 families signed on within 10 days. Dues dropped to $180. Gardens appeared everywhere. Hens clucked in backyards. The trust bought native plants, restored salmon streams. Property values rose. Buyers now pay premiums for conservation proximity. Victoria served 90 days in county jail, 2 years probation, paid $110,000 in damages. Her real estate license was revoked. 3 investment properties foreclosed. Her husband filed for divorce the week she got out. Evergreen Meadows became Evergreen Conservation Community. Annual Harlan Whitaker Day features potlucks under the firs, kids planting seedlings, stories about the surveyor who planned for people he would never meet. Claire moved back to run education programs in the renovated clubhouse. She married a state park ranger she met during restoration work. "My first grandson arrived last spring. I teach him to identify cedar and fur the way Elias taught me." 64 years of careful records, patience, and one ironclad deed beat entitlement, shortcuts, and petty power. Grandfather's legacy didn't just save our land. It gave a whole neighborhood something better than rules written on paper. What do you think, folks? Have you ever dealt with an HOA that acted like it owned more than it did? Or watched someone abuse a little bit of authority until it turned into real harm? Share your stories below, especially your thoughts on when standing up for yourself feels justified and when fighting back might cross into something darker. Where do you draw the line between justice and revenge? I'd genuinely like to hear your perspective. Drop it in the comments.